better than what we're coming through right now. Again, we are at Delta Mod Tech. This is an absolutely gorgeous facility, brand new. We pulled in the lot today, and even the stripes on the parking spots haven't even been worn down yet. It's pretty great. The place that we're in right now, I'll show you real quick. You can see it. There's a few of us out there, and they're going to wave for you. So we're in a nice big conference room here, socially distanced, as we should be. Those of us that are not on the chat do have their masks on. So again, we want to make sure that it's important people notice that. But yeah, quick introductions. My name is Alex Urich. I'm the head coach for 4607 CIS out of Becker, Minnesota. And this is my lead business.
And I'm Sydney Hintermeister. This is my second year on the team. And like Urich said, I am the business lead.
So, perfect. And today we're talking about SWOT, and we're kind of chatting right before this. Her old business teacher used to call it SWOT, right? Which we thought was funny because when we sound out SWOT and SWAT, the SWOT opportunities is what we figured out. And we try to, when we go through this, I want you to keep in mind what SWOT is really about. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and you're identifying each one of those items, the strengths of your team, the weaknesses of your teams, the opportunities of your teams, and the threats. And I'll get this right into here, share my screen. And present. So, already gone through introductions with this. So SWOT essentially is just this nice little graph here. When we're taking a look at it, there's two different columns that I want you to really take a look at, and that's the helpful in achieving a team's objectives column, and then the harmful to achieving a team's objectives column. And what we're trying to do through all of this is move our harmful objectives over here to the right, the weaknesses and threats. We want to move them to strengths and opportunities. And how do we go about doing that? The first thing we have to do, again, is identify what they are. Are they internal factors or are they external factors? So when we take a look at this, I'm going to jump onto the screen so we can see the rest of them there. The Zoom. Okay. So when we take a look at the SWOT, what we want to make sure, go ahead and jump onto that. The internal factors. So when we're taking a look at internal factors of a threat or something that might be, where'd that go to? We're bouncing in and back and forth here, folks. So when we take a look at this, the internal factors, the strengths and the weaknesses. The strengths is something that your team is really built upon, has had a lot of success with, that sort of thing. The weaknesses are something that you might not be able to control year in and year out. One of the things that we've talked about with our weaknesses, Sydney, weakness for us this year seems to be
numbers.
Yep. And that really goes for all of 4607 right now. We graduated 12 students last year, and we graduated 12 in 2019. So all of a sudden, in the last 2 years, we've lost 24 students, which in any team, any robotics team, any high school football team, you always have this turnover. That's something that each team needs to be take a look at every year.
Alex, we weren't able to hear her. Maybe you could repeat what she said, or if people are not actually on, yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Okay. Try again.
So one of the,
yeah, it's not working great. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Great.
Okay. So one of our weaknesses on our team is that we don't have a lot of people. Like Urich said, we graduated quite a number of people last year. So we're trying to get some new blood into the team and on our different departments. And I know especially our business side is lacking in numbers. So that's one of our big goals this year is to get more numbers.
So this slide here will be available on jumpstart.org, jumpstartrobotics.org at the end of this. We use this slide every year. And I hand these out to the different students that are involved in our SWOT analysis, and they go through and they pencil in what they believe our weaknesses are, what our threats are, what our strengths are, and what our opportunities are. So this is just a generic slide that we created many years ago. It's still effective today. So really, what is SWOT? It's not anything that's very specific. It's not something that you're gonna take and you're gonna use as a template for the entire season. It's a tool that provides a basic view of your most important factors that are impacting your program now and in the future. Does that make sense? It provides a foundation for reflective assessment. You really can't do a SWOT assessment until you've actually gone through a full cycle of whatever it is you're trying to analyze, whether it be running through an electrical program, whether it be running through your business cycle, branding, that sort of thing. This is the importance of it. And then the SWOT analysis results can form the basis of developing recommendations and action plans, but they are not the recommendations and action plans themselves. This is really just the first step going through developing your team for the year. Okay. So how do you do this? SWOT analysis is a useful tool for brainstorming and strategic planning. The value comes from very specific objectives or questions. When you take a look at it, like this coming year, for those of you that are on your chairman's team, there was 50 plus new objectives or questions or points of emphasis that we now have to adhere to for the coming year, which is a huge break from where we were last year. So how do we go about taking a look at this new rules or regulations? If you remember back to last year in 2020, the new big thing, or sorry, 2019, or yeah, 2020, the new big item was the no bag. The no bag was profound. Oh, that was in 2019 already, wasn't it? Anyways, yep, 2019 to 2020. That threw a lot of teams for a loop because now you no longer have a time to stop, bag up the robot and that. You have to put those in yourselves. It also takes a look at new challenges. And when I say new challenges, I'm not talking like, what are we going to do to organize this team? It's more along the lines of, are there opportunities out there that we can utilize? For us, a few years ago in 2015, it was looking at organizing this great new idea of JUMPSTART. Is also our trunk or treat. We partnered with North Dakota State University and brought in RI3D for a few years. So there's a lot of areas that we looked at for opportunities. And then also other factors include updating team objectives, trends, that sort of thing. We're going to talk a little bit about our 3, 5, and 10-year goals, and also what we do at the beginning of every year along with our SWOT, which is our priorities, our 1, 3, and 5, or 1, 2, 3 priorities that we go through on 4607. You want to talk a little bit about the #1 priority for your team this year?
For our team, it's really diversifying sponsors. We know as the economy gets better and then it declines. So we're really just focusing on riding the wave and being able to have a lot of different industries of sponsors to fall back on. So
well, that's just the business side of things. And then she'll have another 2 objectives underneath that to work with it. So how does this all fit into SWOT itself? Well, first off, we want to start positively by building on our strengths. SWOT analysis will help you identify those areas that your team really has an identity with. For 4607, for the first few years of our existence up until 2015, it was really building different unique robots that attack the game differently than what the other teams might have gone through. That always set us apart. It always got us, not always, but a lot of times we were selected either as a second or third pick, first or second pick, depending on how you want to look at it, at our different regionals. We were never the captains, but we were always in the playoffs because we had these unique robots. So we built upon that over the course of our first 3-4 years. It helps the team maintain a competitive advantage. If you know what your strengths are, it's a lot easier to hone in on those strengths. When I take a look at teams like 2052, what does 2052 do better than anybody else? They execute better than anybody else I've ever seen when we're out there. 3130, if you go back to their 2015 robot, it was one of the most beautiful machines I've ever seen. And for years beyond that, they built upon that, that same type of model. Building on those strengths helps grow the team as well. It's a lot easier putting students in a place of success than it is, hey, we're really terrible at this, Sydney. You go try to figure out a way to do this. That makes sense?
Yeah, and then I want to add on for the business side of things, one of our strengths that we're focusing on building on is our good relationships with our sponsors. We really strive to take care of our sponsors and we're very appreciative of them. Another one of our strengths is that we're very organized as a business department with our budget and our spending and tracking everything, writing everything down, and tracking our sponsors as well. And that really helps us in the future to focus on what opportunities we have to improve and what kind of what we need to do. So.
And this is something that we really decided to work on last year. We had a good, strong business team coming back, and Sydney has picked up the steam from that. We realized that as the economy was chugging along the way it was in 2019 or early 2020, that the good times aren't always going to survive. At some point, there's going to be a downturn or a change in the economy. So we encourage the kids to get out there and really diversify the sponsors we had. I believe it was somewhere over 90 mailings that were sent out to different sponsors that we had not, or potential sponsors that we had not yet contacted yet. And that netted almost an additional $50,000 for us last year. So it was a nice bonus for us. Any more on the business side?
No.
Any questions so far? This is just on the strengths itself, and we're going to get to the weaknesses, and we're going to explain the relationship between strengths and weaknesses here on this slide. Conducting a SWOT analysis can help identify these characteristics and minimize or improve them before they become a problem. So Sydney talks about how great and strong our business plan is, right? Our business team is right now, and how organized it is. It wasn't that way a number of years ago. A number of years ago, we didn't even have a business team. We had a person that would put together our spreadsheet at the end of the year, and we'd turn it in at the regional, and that was what we called our business plan. We saw that there was an issue there, so we actually brought on our business teacher as one of our coaches, and she really shaped up this team from 2016 onwards. Again, recognizing a weakness there with our business side. Conducting a SWOT analysis can help identify these characteristics, minimize or improve them before they become a problem. A lot of times they become a problem, and then we have to attack them. You need to be realistic about the weakness on your team. It's honest. Sometimes they're difficult conversations. This is what's not going well for us, but everybody needs to understand that we're trying to improve the team. And the whole point of having us sit down and take a look at weaknesses is we want to take those weaknesses and build them up to make them into strengths. We move them to the left side of the column, just like we have right over here. The whole idea is to take this weakness here and move it into a strength. So what I want you to do is keep in mind the weaknesses that you might see in your team as we move forward through this, and think about what are some ways that you could move them on, or at the end of the session here, you can ask questions and we can maybe help identify some of that as well.
And I'd just like to add into the importance of having specific ideas. When you write down your weaknesses, don't just say, yeah, we have this problem, but just be specific so that you can better move that into a strength. I know that has helped us a lot. So.
You think of anything at the top of your head last year, because we went through a lot of weaknesses last year as we moved into it. Drivetrain has always been a weakness for us. I think they're going to touch on that in our FMEA, our drivetrain, how they've improved over the years. Yeah. Then we go to, so these two, the strengths and the weaknesses, these are internal, right? So then when we get to the opportunities, seizing opportunities, this is when we get to the external factors of the team. So stuff that we cannot control on our team, stuff that's influencing us from the outside, or something that we can take a hold of and make it part of our team later on. So when you take a look at the external factors, and again, we underline that because it's so important to understand that this is an external factor, such as new technology. We're looking ahead in a couple years here. The Robo Rio is going away. National Instruments is bringing on a whole new Rio for us, I believe in 2022 or 2023. Every single team in FRC is going to have to embrace that at some point. We're going to get a couple of years of transition, but we're all going to have to take a look at this new technology and how we're going to use it, right? Rule changes are another big one. Rule changes every year. Teams spend weeks after kickoff going through all of the new rule changes for each year, and it still gets. So when you conduct a SWOT analysis, make sure you understand the internal factors, your team's strengths and weaknesses. That'll influence your ability to take advantage of the new opportunity. One thing that I do want you to take a look at with this is a note of caution. If your team doesn't have the capability to seize on an opportunity, but you go ahead and you take advantage of it or you try it, it can be costly in the long run. I'm going to go back a couple steps here. One of the opportunities that we saw early on when we were working with this new JUMPSTART platform was mentors needed some place where they could just come and talk or air their concerns. So what we did was we took a look at a weekend in October, Saturday, and we worked with St. Cloud State that first year, and we brought a whole bunch of the mentors on campus, about 50 of them, just to talk about what are some concerns with FIRST Robotics. Well, that ended up turning into a great positive for us. If it wasn't done correctly or we didn't bring in the right people, it could have been something that would have been a negative for us. And again, part of the sponsoring it, we had to find the right sponsors because it ended up being about a $1,500 weekend just to have these people on campus with us. So you want to talk about getting new blood in the program?
Yeah, so like we had mentioned earlier, we had quite a number of graduates this previous year and the year before that, and a lot of those were leads of teams. So getting new people interested, and especially the younger ones interested and active in the team, was super important to us so that we can have a consistent buildup of people and people who can learn and know what they're doing. And it's exciting to have new blood on our team. And that's, like we had mentioned earlier too, one of our biggest goals for this year.
So let's just take a look at that. When we're talking about new blood on the team, as our kids hit that senior year, they're not bringing in many of the new ideas. We encourage the students to take on different roles and to find new objectives or new knowledge so they can come in back into the team. So now it's fresh that way. So we're kind of riding the wave, this sort of thing. That's really what we're talking about. So counteracting threats. What is a threat? A threat is an external factor, and we all face them. Right now, our biggest external factor right now that we would deem as a threat would be COVID, right? COVID has been something that has completely disrupted every channel of our lives. FRC has been completely changed because of this. So how do we go about taking these threats, recognizing them, and then packaging up so that we can possibly move them into the column of being an opportunity? The other areas that we saw in 4607, and this is again anecdotal, change in administration. Change in administration for any team, if you're a school-based team, definitely comes with some waves that you have to ride out. 3 years ago, we either retired or had administrators leave. Upwards of 20 of our 24 administrative positions left Becker schools, and that was a bit concerning for us. We made it a point to get into the school board meetings at that point, more than what we had been before, as well as sit down with our new administration and explain to them exactly what 4607 is, not just a robotics team. We really look at it as our DECA program here in Becker as well. Yeah. So counteracting these threats, SWOT analysis can help identify the threats and the ways to counteract them. but it really does depend on your strengths and weaknesses as well. So when you start to balance this equation out, your threats can be devastating if you're not leaning on your strengths. They can be devastating if you're concentrated too much on your weaknesses and not moving those towards the strength column. And again, coming from the business side, Sydney's going to talk a little bit about where we're at right now.
Hey, Alex.
Yep.
One thing just for, I think most teams forget or don't think about is, you know, you're probably incredibly impactful to 4607. And, you know, we had at 3130, we had Doug Jensen,
Yep.
who was the heart and soul of our team. And one of our biggest threats that we identified in our first SWOT is what happens if Doug disappears and gets sick or retires or whatever. And, you know, we had just started thinking about that. And guess what? Doug has health problems and then has to back away. And our team has been, I don't want to say reeling, because we've been still a decent competitive team, but nowhere near the dominance because we lost, you know, the heart and soul of our team from a leadership perspective. And I think that every team that has somebody that is a singular influence that drives everything has to be steadily prepared to what happens in the event that that person steps out. And, you know, that's a case study that we're dealing with right now is, you know, we're on our fourth head mentor since Doug stepped away, and we haven't been able to build a continuity. And that is a threat to, I think, a lot of teams with somebody as powerful, you know, as a you or as a Doug or somebody else. So.
Yeah, and that is honestly something we've talked about quite a bit, not only on 4607, but on the different Jumpstart for Mentors. What happens if this mentor leaves? And it's really not the Doug Jensen's, because Doug was, he definitely was the heart and soul of 3130. I can't believe it's already been that long since he's been gone, 4 new mentors. But even a strong electrical mentor, right? Or a programmer that graduates, that all of a sudden she has all the knowledge and she concentrated so much on the robot, it wasn't mentoring the other students. How do you adjust? And we've seen stuff like that on 4607. And you're right, having that plan, going through the SWOT analysis. And I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning, because I kind of rushed through a lot of it at the first, but the SWOT analysis really does need to happen at the beginning of the season and not kickoff. We're talking now, like November, early December is when we usually do ours.
In each of the departments and every aspect of the team, it's super important to have this SWOT.
Yep. So we go through with our leadership team, go through SWOT training or SWOT analysis. It's not really training, because once you see it and go through it one time, almost everybody's an expert on how to do a SWOT training or SWOT analysis. But yeah, that's a great point, Jerome, is what happens if this person leaves. That's what I think one of the bigger threats that we have right now. So thank you for that heads up. So we've got the 4 that we talked about now. Now we're going to get into a little bit about addressing it itself. It's beneficial to address in all areas. Sydney's talked a lot about the business side just because she's one of our leads here on the team, and has found an interest in SWOT analysis itself. But we've done SWOT analysis through all of these, through programming, through our safety. I honestly believe our safety team is that robust because they go through SWOT. They go through SWOT probably every month, it seems. It might not be might not be organized, but they do it as the way that their team is set up.
Actually thinking about it is super important as well.
Yep.
So constantly thinking about, all right, what are our weaknesses and how can we move those to strengths? What are our threats and how can we move those to opportunities?
Yep.
Not look at it once and be done. It's to keep revisiting it is.
Well, benefits of SWOT. The biggest thing that I love about this is it's little to no cost. It's printing out some of those pieces of paper from the beginning and literally just handing them out to kids with a pen and start filling out what are some strengths, what are some weaknesses that we got to take a look at. That's the one thing I do love about this SWOT, this program itself. It's easily attainable. Again, I can flash that up on the screen real quick, and within a matter of 5 minutes of explaining it, everybody completely understands what we're trying to do here. The team itself, you can understand the team at a deeper level. A new student can walk in and say, oh, geez, there's a lot of stuff going on with this team. But after a full session of analyzing the team with SWOT, which takes about an hour, they can get a better understanding of what the team is. It does help develop goals and strategies. It doesn't actually make those or identify them, but it does help develop goals and strategies. And it does, as Sydney just mentioned a bit ago, it helps organizing that thinking process. Yeah. So really that's the benefits of it. The negatives or limitations is it's only one element. On 4607, we use goal setting. We talked a little bit about our 1, 2, 3, and we can talk about that more in just a bit. Core value training, those are some of the things that we take a look at for team development. It places items into boxes, and for humans, it's really natural to put everything in boxes, but that's not always beneficial. We want to make sure that those things, we know that that's fluid. We can take it from one box and move it to another. We can take it from the threat and move it to an opportunity. That always has to be in the back of our mind. It doesn't prioritize anything here at all. It just is a really what sticks.
And that's why we have the other aspects of it too. So the goal setting, the 1, 2, 3s, which we'll talk about later, those are what help prioritize our goals and setting the goals. So yes. It also does not provide solutions or alternative decisions. So like Eric said, it doesn't give us a direct answer, but rather help guide us to the answer.
Yeah, and then it can if you're not limiting your time, if you're allowing this to go on for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or even days or weeks, all of a sudden you're just in a downward spiral of all these ideas that are going on. Instead of capping it, here's what we have an hour to do this exercise, and then we're going to be done with it, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So the limitations are there. How did we come about this? Really, for 4607, the first few years, as I mentioned, we made some really creative robots. They weren't always the best robots. 2015, I'll talk about quite a bit. Again, 3130 was at the same regional we were. I'm not sure if you remember this at all, Jerome, if you were there. We had the best defensive robot in the world, I believe at that time. It was 9 feet long by the time we unfurled it all. And it didn't move.
I remember that.
It didn't move 8 out of 10 matches. Alliances would come up to us, our alliance partners would come up and say, can you guys just go to the side and sit over there and not move? And that's really what we did best.
Hey, it worked, right?
Yeah, it worked.
Sometimes you just got to go with what you got and come up with a good strategy around it.
Yep. And that's so we identified that 2015 was really that linchpin for us, where we stopped doing the things that we were doing wrong, and we started moving those into the left column so that we were doing things correctly. We knew we had the ability to think outside the norm. We created a strong brand. We found this out at Champs in 16 and 17. Everybody knows 4607 as black and white. And the hex. However, in our school, colors are
blue and white.
Yeah, our school colors are Columbia blue, navy blue, and white. So we don't really fit in with the school either. So we created our own brand even within our own school. When we got to Champs in 16, our senior drive captain wanted orange. He wanted orange t-shirts. So we made orange t-shirts, and then the hex had TIE fighters flying all over it. It was just a big hot mess. I came up to the top of the stadium and I'm looking for 4607 and I can't see him anywhere. And all of a sudden I see all these hands waving at me. They were literally right next to me. I couldn't see him. In 17, same thing. We decided to do Columbia blue to kind of match our school. And John Stratus came over and said, you guys got to stop mixing up your colors. You're black and white and that's it. That's what 4607 is. So we realized that, and then we stuck with that ever since. To talking back to business again, we had an act to bring in many varied sponsors. And we always had cash on hand, which was nice. We were always able to purchase that next item we needed to. And part of that was just because we had so many great sponsors. We didn't realize this at the time. We didn't realize it as a strength, but it was still there.
And part of the reason we did have so many varied sponsors was because kids from our team came from so many different backgrounds. We had a kid from the firearm industry, the farming industry, just all over. And that really helped us to diversify our sponsor pool.
Yeah, and what people don't realize about Becker's, we're in the middle of nowhere. We don't belong to St. Cloud, even though we're 25 miles out of St. Cloud. If you ask the metro teams like New Brighton or even 3130, sometimes we get the response, I don't even know where Becker is. That's kind of where we found a niche, was we don't fit in exactly with, anyway, you can't really pin us to one specific location. So we were able to make some really good, strong relationships with the outstate teams and the metro teams. So that was fun. And it was actually the first few years at state. We kept hearing from the outstate teams, although you metro teams never pick from the outstate teams. I'm like, what do you mean you metro teams? We're not a metro team. Like, oh yeah, you are. Anyways, it's a running joke here in 4607 about that end of it. So we identified those as our strengths that 2015. And then we took a look at our weaknesses, and this is where that gut check happened. Every year we had a new programmer come on, and a new programmer decided they would want a new type of program to use. So we started off with LabVIEW, and then we switched to C++, and then we went to Java, and then we went to Python, and now we're back to Java. I believe Java, yes, it's Java. We had absolutely no checklist to speak of. When you walked into our pit, it was absolute chaos, disaster, disorder, every other adjective you could think of. The pit was terrible. The batteries, we didn't know which batteries came from which year. We had failures all over the board, but we never tracked them. We didn't analyze much. We just went back and went on our merry old way. We also had no engineering processes to lean on. And that was a big part because when we started the program, we had an English teacher who started the program. And then myself, who I'm a tech ed teacher, but I don't have an engineering background. I like the skills, I like the trades, not the engineering side. That was not my strength. So, and we also had no engineering mentors to develop processes at all. So we just kind of flew by the seat of our pants. Sound familiar to anybody? So then we decided to look at our opportunities. What could we do to better ourselves? How do we improve 4607 properly? Well, that's where the SWOT came in. We took a look at our opportunities. There was 4607 out of Becker, 4632 out of Monticello. We were twin teams. We came on the same year, but didn't really speak at all. Even though we're 9 miles apart, we didn't interact with each other at all. And there was really nothing else. So we decided that let's start forming this organization. It's called, we didn't know it was going to be called Central Minnesota Robotics Hub. We just decided that we want to start meeting other teams and growing other teams. Now this slide's wrong. It's now 22 strong. We did add another team in Legacy this year, which is awesome. We partnered with St. Cloud State to create JUMPSTART training events. We wanted to concentrate on the 5 to 10 teams that we were working with at that time. And then that first year we had 22 teams. Last year at St. Cloud State alone, we had 45 teams with over 1,400 people attend the St. Cloud State JUMPSTART. At Medtronic JUMPSTART last year, I believe it was 425 students. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Char. But yeah, we utilize our relationships to form partnerships with new organizations. And what do I mean by that? I had coached soccer for many years. I had a great relationship with Minnesota United. We bring our kids down there every year. We go to a game. We got to go behind the scenes at Gopher Stadium. That transferred or transpired into working with the Twins this last couple of years. So now we have created the STEM Day at the Minnesota Twins. So that was all happening at 1 year for us in 2015. So things had to propel or move faster for us. Then this is the big one. 4607 SWOT. You want to talk about silos? How many times we talk about silos on 4607?
Probably every meeting.
What is a silo? What do silos mean?
So a silo is basically where we stick to ourselves and don't really branch out. And that's kind of, is that where the innovation cannot happen in isolation came from? So we decided to take on that motto to break out of our silos and to reach out to other teams and even other departments, I'd say, within our team, to work with each other and collaborate. And ever since we've started doing that, our team has grown significantly. So, yeah.
What we identified there with breaking out of the silos or breaking down those silos is the students themselves relate to each other like, oh, you're still doing, even though you're on the marketing team and I'm on programming, you're still dealing with similar problems that I'm dealing with, or you're attacking them differently. So let's trade secrets here. And it goes through with teams as well. We used to be a very closed shop team. We, from 13, 14, and 15, we really thought we knew how to build a robot better than anybody else. 15 tore that Band-Aid right off and kind of showed everything in the world for us. That's when we realized, you know what, this closed shop idea doesn't make sense. We need to have more teams coming in, and we need to be going to the team shops and seeing. That's where the hub started meeting every Friday night during the build season. We rotate places where we go and visit and take a look at their shop. We talk about what's not going right. We show what we saw that's going better for us, breaking down new strategies, that sort of thing. In our area, we had no identifiable allies in 2015 in central Minnesota. When we looked around, even though Monticello, again, was only 9 miles away, we didn't talk to them. We didn't talk to them at regionals. It was a weird relationship. Fast forward now 4 or 5 years, and it's a team that we work with regularly. We also work with Big Lake, Pequot Lakes, Eden Valley Watkins, you name it. There's again, 20 teams in the Central Minnesota Robotics Hub that we're working with that. And then we also looked at not being adopted by our school. We remain club status, and actually right now we're a partner with the school. We're not an official activity, but they pay for the coach's salary, and that's about it. But they allow us to hang the banner, or then allow us to, but they hang our banners in the gym right alongside football and volleyball, gymnastics, basketball.
We really turned that threat into an opportunity by utilizing our sponsors and really reaching out and connecting with new companies. And I think that's been great for our team to do that. Also, there's no regional in the Central Minnesota Robotics Hub or St. Cloud area to call home.
Yeah, when we go to the U of M and compete, all of our kids are driving there. We're close enough where we don't have to get a hotel, but that drive home every night is far enough. By the time you walk to the car, get in the car and drive home, it's an hour and a half, drive. It doesn't make it a very home-like feeling being there. So we tried getting a regional set up in St. Cloud, and that ended up happening. What ended up happening with that was JUMPSTART came out of that whole opportunity. So we were able to use that to create this new event. How do we prioritize our SWOT information? This is where we take our what we found from our sheets, really start to package it up. We brainstorm all our goals, objectives from team members, and we do this in smaller groups. We don't want the big group pushing this all together. Why is that?
Because then there can become too many ideas shared, and it can just get really confusing when there's too many people throwing in their ideas. So in smaller groups, we can better prioritize our information and then have a lot of small groups then come together and share what they found out. And that works best with this.
Yep.
Alex, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me? How about now, Jerome?
Yes, when you start talking to the side is when we struggle hearing
Okay,
you.
sorry. I'm used to walking around as my teacher self does. We have this giant whiteboard that we post everything on, and it gets marked up every day and then erased. But with the SWOT analysis, we bring all these ideas together and we post them on there, and then we start circling, right? we start looking at, okay, which ones fit together, and then we'll move that down to this area. And then we identify, okay, this is a group area here that is definitely one big objective. We've got 5 like themes running through here. Let's keep this in there. Remember this from last year?
Yes.
Okay. And then package them up and then come up with one overarching goal. So when we talk about the 1, 2, 3s, the number 1 is our one overarching goal. And then the 2s usually have 2 more objectives underneath that help support that single goal. And then the 3s are the 3s are just 3s. They're the ones that take back to the departments that they can use, and that sort of thing. So 5. Okay. And then tracking our success and failures. We set 1, 5, and 10-year goals for the team every year. We did this our very first year, and what we found, it was beneficial for the kids to see that that goal. They want to see that I want to get to that point as fast as possible. We base this off our collected objectives, and then we use different documents to track the progress. And again, I'm going to put this up on the website when we get there. But if you just take a look at our goal setting, and you're going to cringe, Sydney, I know. This is a live document we've used for many years. If you take a look at it, can you guys see the document pop up? Okay, you guys can see it, good. So this goes all the way back to 2012 in our goals, and we've just tracked what has happened since then with this. And it's a year out of date at least, because we didn't do it after 2019, I'm pretty sure. But you can go through and see where we've been at for all of these. We always look at it as, if we're writing down our goals and our objectives, if we're keeping them current or keeping track of them, we're gonna hit those a lot better than what we were.
Something I'd like to add that we noticed when we started doing the 1, 5, and 10-year goals is that we ended up meeting some of our 5 and 10-year goals in that first year. I think it just helped us have more drive to reach those goals, and we could see them on paper and see the excitement of what was going to come if we reach those goals. So.
And then how do I effectively, oh, go ahead. So, yep. Do you have the chat? Can you pull the chat up real quick? We're going to answer this question for you. So, how do you maintain and work toward your 5 and 10-year goals despite student turnover every 4 years? This is where it gets to be a debatable question or a debatable answer. I honestly believe that that's where the mentors are here for. We're the ones that kind of carry the standard for the team as these students come through. Just like any other program, football or whatnot, Becker's had a fairly strong football program. The coaching staff has been the same for the last 50 years. The students come in and go through the program, learn about how to play football and from the mentors, and move on from there. Without the mentors, you really don't have 1, 5, and 10-year goals. Right. It's hard to maintain those.
Also with your new members, to make sure that they're really informed about what's going on in their department. So in the business department, when I get some younger people on, I will make sure that they know what's going on just as much as I do, and that there's all the information is just out there for everyone to see and learn, and that's important.
Yep. But you do, so I'm going to add on to that. And who asked that question? Because I want to, that was an awesome question. Ravisha. Here's one of the other things that we do. This is my alum that I keep track of. The kids are quite surprised that I do keep track of this much. But as it's loading up here, you can see I go all the way back to 2013. I can tell you who my students were and really what they were doing at the time. The role on the team, where they went after that. Ooh, she's loading a little slower. I have a beautiful graph here that's not going to show up, but you can even see the role on the team, where they went to school. You see a lot of NDSU here, a lot of Minnesota, not a lot of St. Cloud State, sadly. So there it is. And why do I do that? 2 things. It shows my current students, hey, you've got an opportunity to go really wherever you want. And number 2, when Sydney has a question on, hey, what happened back in 2014 with the marketing or the business? Well, you can see I can't really tell her that there's any marketing or business happening at that time. But at least in 2015, hey, you want to reach out to Sydney Bush. She'll gladly help you. And we do maintain most of those students' contact information. Obviously, I don't have it here for good reason, but yeah, that was one of the other ways to keep that trajectory of the 1, 5, and 10 year going. So, and then just because I get crazy about all of this stuff, we do even track the teams that make it to champs and to state every year. And then we track their Hub Alliance Coalition full affiliation, the training event they went to, school. And why do we do this? Again, it's for my students to be able to go back and find that team that was able to help us, or maybe made it that 2016 off of a basic design, whatever it might be. We like to have information available to us at all times. And again, we have a couple minutes left. All right. All right. So Sydney's telling me I got to get moving. Effectively accomplishing your goals. This is a slide that I have in there, just again, anecdotal. You identify your goals, you're more likely to be successful. If you write them down, you're more successful. If you publish your goals, well, you're most likely going to hit them. So we're going to get through here. And in conclusion, there's some bonus slides we're not going to get to, but Sydney, go ahead and take this one.
So on our team, we really utilize SWOT to our fullest advantage, but we really used our weaknesses and opportunities to redefine who 4607 was and focused on moving our weaknesses to our strengths and threats to our opportunities. Some of the ways we did this was our JUMPSTART training events. Those have really taken off, so it's good. Spec check, creation of NDSU Bison Robotics, and hosting the Greenhorns for 4 years. So that was pretty exciting. Also, the programming helpline becomes and then mentors on calls. Yeah. Want to talk more about that one?
Yep. 15 and 16, we had some really young programmers. I didn't know what to do because the lead programmer at the time, we didn't have a lead mentor at that one. Didn't really want them to touch the robot. So we set them up with answering questions for people. And it became very popular, actually. They worked with the NDSU students. And soon enough, all of a sudden, Todd, who you just met earlier today, and then Chris, who was another CSA in Minnesota, adopted it and created what is now Minnesota Mentors on Call, which is really, we can just send mentors to wherever we need to. And the rest of them there, as you can see, it's been stuff that we've been working with for the last few years. It's been awesome. So we're going to leave the last 8 minutes for any questions. Yeah, we're out here at 8:30, so, or 10:30. So any questions, concerns, comments? Jerome, you've been an awesome. So I didn't mean to wake you up.
No, I was just saying the one thing that, you know, I just look back to, I was just looking back at our most or the first SWOT that we did, and we did it back in 2017. And, you know, one of the things that we were identifying as a threat was the school being shut down for snow. And what were we going to do? You know, because there are lots of teams that don't have snow days, and
Yep.
You know, we could lose up to a week, 2 weeks of build season based on snow. And so how do we do with that? And, you know, I think that kind of helped us mentally prepare for COVID, you know, and thinking of how do we store things and how do we keep things and how will we react in the event that we can't meet in person.
Perfect. Perfect. Awesome. Yep. Kristen, we see that we're heading out. Our next team is coming up right now. They're moving into the new conference room. So we're going to transition over that. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys being here. Jerome will get that information out to you, and all this information, the slideshow and everything else we posted on jumpstartrobotics.org. So have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining this.